Most people think rich people spend money on things. Cars, watches, mansions, champagne. That's the story the world sells you, because it's easy to film, easy to envy, and easy to monetize. But the real way rich people spend their money is not on things. They spend money on control. They spend money on time, options, stability, influence, and the ability to make decisions without desperation. And once you understand that, you stop copying the surface-level lifestyle, and you start building the underlying machine. Today I'm going to show you how wealthy people really allocate money, not as a moral lecture, but as a strategic framework. We'll talk about what rich actually means in financial terms, the invisible spending categories that create more wealth, the psychological traps that keep high earners broke, and the 5 rich habits that look boring from the outside, but are lethal in the long run. Stay until the end, because I'll give you a simple tool, the rich spending audit. 7 questions that instantly reveal whether your spending is building optionality or building a cage. Let's begin. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is The Real Way Rich People Spend Their Money. Quick disclaimer, this is educational content, not financial advice. And when I say rich, I'm not talking about celebrity flash or billionaire headlines. I'm talking about financial behavior, how people with real wealth protect it and grow it. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of people who look rich are fragile, and a lot of people who are rich look boring. So if you want to learn the real spending patterns, you have to stop watching the front stage and start studying the backstage. And we'll do it with a Soros-style lens: fallibility, reflexivity, and optionality. Because money is not just numbers. Money is behavior under uncertainty. Here's the sentence. Poor and middle-class spending tries to buy status. Rich spending tries to buy freedom. Status is about being seen. Freedom is about being able to choose. Status spending is usually fragile. It creates fixed costs. It creates maintenance. It creates pressure to keep earning. Freedom spending is resilient. It creates buffers. It reduces obligations. It increases bargaining power. The tragedy is that status spending is louder, so people copy it. Meanwhile, freedom spending is quiet, so people ignore it. Today we reverse that. Here's our roadmap. The 2 kinds of rich. Income rich versus wealth rich. The main rule. Rich people spend to increase optionality. The 6 categories where rich people actually spend money. The 5 traps that keep high earners broke. The rich spending audit. 7 questions you can use today. A closing plan. How to shift your spending without feeling deprived. And I'll make it practical. What to copy, what to ignore, and how to apply it at any income level. Because you don't need to be rich to behave like the wealthy. You need to spend like someone who is building a future. Later in this episode, I'll explain the most misunderstood spending category of wealthy people. They spend money to reduce risk. Not insurance, in the boring sense, but risk reduction as a deliberate strategy. Legal structure diversification, health relationships, and reputation. It's not glamorous, but it's why wealth lasts. Alright, in part 2 we start with the foundation, income rich versus wealth rich, and why many people who earn a lot are still not truly rich. Then we'll move into the 6 categories of real rich spending. Let's define rich properly, because most people don't chase wealth. They chase the appearance of wealth, and that confusion is expensive. Income rich means you earn a lot. You can have a big salary, a successful business, a high commission role, but you may still be fragile. Because income-rich people can be highly leveraged, tied to high fixed costs, dependent on one paycheck, and psychologically addicted to lifestyle maintenance. Income-rich is loud. Wealth-rich. Wealth-rich means you own assets that produce stability and optionality. You have reserves, diversified holdings, a low-obligation life, and the ability to say no. Wealth-rich is quiet. Wealth-rich doesn't need to prove anything. This is the first core lesson. Many people who look rich are income-rich. The truly rich are wealth-rich. And that brings us to the principle that explains how they spend. Here's the rule that you should remember. Real rich spending is spending that increases optionality. Optionality means choices, flexibility, negotiating power, resilience, the ability to wait, and the ability to walk away. Most people spend to feel good today. Wealthy people spend to improve their position tomorrow. This is not because they're morally superior. It's because they've learned the most important thing in finance. The future is uncertain, so they spend money to reduce fragility and increase control. That is the Soros lens. Fallibility. We can be wrong. Reflexivity. Behavior changes outcomes. Optionality. Choices beat prediction. Now, let's get specific. I'll give you the first two categories of how rich people really spend. If you want to understand real wealth, understand this. The richest asset is not money. It's time. So rich people spend to buy time in three ways. 1. They outsource low-value time. They pay for convenience, not to feel luxurious, but to protect their attention. Not everything, just the tasks that drain their energy and don't produce growth. This might include cleaning, meal prep, basic errands, certain admin work. But here's the key difference. They don't outsource to be lazy. They outsource to focus, because focus builds income and assets. 2. They buy time through mobility and flexibility. They choose living and working structures that allow them to move quickly. Flexible schedules, remote arrangements, access to networks, proximity to opportunities. Time is also distance. Less friction, more opportunity. 3. They buy time through planning and systems. This is the boring one. They pay for good accountants, solid legal structure, automation, financial planning advisors in areas where mistakes are expensive. Not because they love paying fees, but because they understand what mistakes cost in time. A bad tax mistake can cost years. A bad legal structure can cost decades, so they spend on systems that protect their time. Here's an example. Two people both spend $500 a month extra. Person A spends it on lifestyle upgrades, nicer car, expensive dining, constant dopamine. Person B spends it on leverage, tools that increase productivity, education that increases income, a service that frees time to build a side asset. 5 years later, person A looks successful. Person B becomes successful. Because person B spent to buy time and focus, then converted that time into assets. That is rich spending. This category is the least glamorous, but it's the foundation of wealth. Rich people spend to reduce the probability of ruin. They understand fallibility. Businesses can slow, markets can crash, health can change, regulations can change, relationships can shift downward. So they build stability. Here's what that looks like. 1. Buffers and reserves. They keep liquidity. Not because they don't like investing, but because liquidity is optionality. Liquidity allows you to survive drawdowns, buy opportunities during stress, avoid forced selling, negotiate from strength. 2. Insurance and risk transfer. They insure against catastrophic loss, not tiny inconveniences, catastrophes, because the real enemy is not a bad month, it's a permanent loss. 3. Lower fixed costs than they could afford. This will surprise you. Many wealthy people can afford far more than they choose, because a low fixed cost life creates freedom, flexibility, and resilience. High fixed costs turn wealth into a cage. This is why some wealthy people drive boring cars, not because they can't afford better, because they don't need to prove anything, and because they want to stay unforced. Think like a professional. If stability prevents you from making one catastrophic decision, its return can be infinite, because it prevents ruin. Ruin is the only thing compounding cannot recover from. So rich spending includes paying for stability. Not exciting, not visible, but extremely high value. In part 3, we'll continue with the remaining categories of real rich spending. Spending to buy health, spending to buy access in relationships, spending to buy risk reduction, the misunderstood one, and spending to buy assets instead of liabilities. Then we'll cover the 5 traps that keep high earners broke, because those traps are exactly what social media teaches. So far, we've covered 2 invisible categories of real rich spending: buying time, buying stability. Now we add the next 4 categories, the ones that create long-term advantage. Then we'll expose the traps that keep high earners broke. Because here's a painful truth. You can earn a lot and still lose the game if you spend like someone trying to prove something. Let's continue. If you want to understand real wealth, understand this. Health is not a lifestyle. It's an investment. Poor health creates medical costs, loss of energy, reduced focus, lower productivity, fewer opportunities, and a shorter time horizon. So wealthy people spend money to protect sleep, fitness, nutrition, mental stability, preventive care, not because they want to look good, because health is capacity. Capacity allows them to work when opportunities appear, think clearly under stress, and sustain high performance for decades. This is compounding in the real world. Health compounds into income, relationships, and decision quality. And decision quality compounds into wealth. I've seen people save money by destroying their health. Bad sleep, poor food, constant stress, no exercise. They think they're being disciplined, but they're actually borrowing from the future at an insane interest rate. Because when health collapses, the financial plan collapses. So the wealthy spend to protect the machine that produces wealth, themselves. This is one of the most misunderstood categories. Poor and middle-class thinking says connections are unfair. Professional thinking says connections are reality. Wealthy people spend to be in rooms where information is higher quality, standards are higher, opportunities appear earlier, and trust moves faster. They spend on communities, conferences, dinners, memberships, travel to meet the right people, education that connects them to peers. But notice the key difference. They don't buy access to feel important. They buy access to increase probability. Probability of better deals, better partnerships, better jobs, better investments, and better ideas. This is optionality again. Access creates options. Reflexivity applies here too. When you're surrounded by builders, you build more. When you're surrounded by spenders, you spend more. Belief shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. So wealthy people curate environments. They pay to be near. Competence, ambition, and high signal-to-noise thinking. Because environment is a hidden investment. This category is not glamorous, but it's powerful. Wealthy people spend money on risk reduction, good legal structure, good accounting, clean contracts, professional advice when mistakes are expensive, security diversification. Why? Because the wealthy understand the asymmetry of risk. A small gain doesn't change your life. A catastrophic loss can destroy decades. So they protect the downside. This is a Soros principle. Avoid ruin. Because once you're ruined, compounding is irrelevant. Let's make it simple. An asset pays you or grows in value over time. A liability costs you over time. Many people buy expensive liabilities and call it success. Wealthy people buy assets, or they buy liabilities intentionally, with clear limits. They ask, does this purchase increase my optionality? Does it reduce my fragility? Does it create future cash flow or strategic advantage? This is not about never enjoying life. It's about not confusing enjoyment with identity. The wealthy don't need purchases to prove they matter. They spend for strategy, not validation. Now let's expose the traps, because many high earners fall into them. Trap 1. Lifestyle inflation becomes permanent fixed cost. Income rises, and obligations rise with it. Bigger house, multiple car payments, subscriptions, private everything. The result, high income, low freedom. Trap 2. Status spending replaces strategy. They spend to signal, brands, luxury, social proof, but status spending is endless. It never produces satisfaction, only the next upgrade. Trap 3. Overconfidence and concentration. They start believing they're special. Then, concentrate investments, take leverage, chase hero trades. They confuse a good year with skill. Trap 4. Fragility disguised as success. From the outside it looks impressive. Inside it's stressful. High earners with high obligations become trapped. They can't quit. They can't slow down. They can't take creative risk. Trap 5. No buffer, no plan. They assume income will continue forever. Then life happens, and the fall is fast. In part 4, I'll give you the rich spending audit. 7 questions that reveal instantly whether your spending is building freedom or building a cage. Then I'll show you how to shift your spending without feeling deprived, without pretending you hate nice things, and without becoming extreme frame. Because the goal isn't to stop spending. The goal is to spend like someone who is building optionality. Now we make this actionable. Because understanding how rich people spend is useless unless you can apply it to your own life at any income level. So I'm giving you a tool, the rich spending audit. 7 questions. You can answer them in 10 minutes, and they will reveal whether your spending is moving you toward optionality or toward fragility. Then we'll go into practical shifts, what to keep, what to cut, what to upgrade, and how to spend without self-sabotage. Let's go. Write these down. 1. Does this purchase increase my freedom in the next 12 months? Freedom means time flexibility, reduced stress, improved negotiating power. If the answer is no, it might still be fine, but it's consumption, not strategy. 2. Does this purchase reduce fragility? Does it reduce the chance that a shock forces bad decisions? Insurance buffers, reducing high-interest debt, simplifying obligations. 3. Does this purchase create future cash flow or capacity? Cash flow can be direct assets or indirect skills, tools, health. If it increases your earning power or decision quality, it's closer to rich spending. 4. Does this purchase create recurring fixed costs? If it creates ongoing payments, ask, am I buying a lifestyle or buying a cage? High fixed costs are the #1 reason high earners feel trapped. 5. Would I still buy it if nobody could see it? This question destroys status spending. If the value disappears without an audience, it's probably a signal, not a need. 6. If my income dropped by 30% for 12 months, would this purchase hurt me? This is a stress test. If a purchase makes you fragile under a realistic downside scenario, it's dangerous. 7. Does this spending align with the person I'm becoming? This is the identity question. Because money follows identity, and identity follows repeated choices. If your spending contradicts your long-term identity, you'll feel internal conflict, and that conflict often leads to impulsive spending. If you answer these 7 questions honestly, you'll notice something. Rich spending is not cheap. Rich spending is intentional. The wealthy aren't allergic to pleasure. They're allergic to fragility. They don't avoid nice things. They avoid becoming forced. Now I'll show you how to shift your spending in real life. 4 shifts. Simple, effective. If you want immediate freedom, reduce fixed costs, not 20 small cuts. 1 big move, housing, car debt payment, or an expensive recurring habit. Because fixed costs are a permanent tax on your optionality. This is why people with high incomes can still feel trapped. Their obligations eat their freedom. So rich people often keep fixed costs lower than they could. Not because they can't spend, but because they refuse to be owned by their lifestyle. Rich people spend on time and health because those are compounding assets. So instead of upgrading status items, upgrade sleep, fitness, nutrition, mental stability tools that improve productivity, services that remove low-value tasks. This is spending that pays you back. It's not luxury, it's leverage. This is my favorite shift. It's not about never buying nice things. It's about changing the target. Instead of upgrade car to impress, upgrade apartment to signal, upgrade outfits to show status. Convert it into emergency buffer skill, investment, mobility fund, debt reduction, time-saving systems, access to better opportunities. The wealthy buy freedom first, then they buy nice things from surplus. Most people do the opposite. Quiet wealth is invisible to strangers, but powerful to you. Quiet wealth includes cash buffer, diversified investments, low obligations, high optionality, strong health, strong relationships, clean legal tax structure. You don't need to show quiet wealth. You feel it. You sleep differently. You negotiate differently. You behave like a person who has choices. Let's make it concrete. Example A. The $1,000 a month upgrade. Looks rich. Lease a luxury car. Is rich. Invest $1,000 a month plus keep a reliable car. The car is visible. The portfolio is invisible. But the portfolio buys time. The car buys obligation. Example B. The expensive apartment. Looks rich. Bigger place in the trendiest area. Is rich. Choose a place that keeps fixed costs manageable, plus invest the difference. Location matters, yes, but overextending housing is the most common wealth killer. Example C. The I deserve it purchases. Looks rich. Constant treats to manage stress. Is rich. Spend on systems that reduce stress at the source, health, boundaries, time. A lot of spending is emotional self-medication. Rich spending fixes the system, not the symptom. Here's why lifestyle inflation is so powerful. When income rises, you feel like a different person. That belief changes behavior. Behavior changes spending. Spending creates obligations. Obligations create stress. Stress creates more spending. That loop is reflexivity, and it's negative. To break it, you need a rule. When income rises, increase investing, wealth capture first. Upgrade lifestyle later, slowly. That one rule separates wealth building from wealth theater. In part 5 final, we'll close with the deepest layer. How rich people buy invisible power. Not conspiracy, not drama, just reality. Negotiating power, reputation, optionality, and the ability to wait. Then I'll summarize everything into a 1-page rich spending framework you can actually use, and we'll end with a strong closing message. Let's end with the part almost nobody talks about, because it isn't glamorous. The real way rich people spend their money is not to look impressive. It's to create invisible power. The power to wait, the power to negotiate, the power to say no, the power to move when others are stuck, the power to stay calm when others panic. This is not about control over people, it's about control over your own position. Because in finance and in life, your position determines your options, and options determine your outcomes. So let's talk about invisible power spending. Then I'll give you a one-page framework you can screenshot and use. 1. They buy the ability to wait. This is the most valuable advantage in markets and negotiations. If you can wait, you don't accept bad deals. So they spend to create liquidity, low fixed costs, diversified income, and buffers. This isn't conservative. This is strategic dominance. Because waiting turns the world's urgency into your advantage. 2. They buy negotiating power. Negotiating power comes from not needing the outcome. If you're desperate, you lose. So wealthy people spend to remove desperation. They keep reserves, they avoid lifestyle cages, they keep their burn rate manageable. Then, when opportunity appears, they can negotiate calmly. 3. They buy reputation and trust. This is a form of capital. Reputation makes opportunities cheaper. Better deals, better partnerships, better referrals, better information. So wealthy people spend on being reliable, doing what they say, protecting relationships, avoiding behavior that destroys trust. This spending isn't always money. Sometimes it's opportunity cost. They refuse short-term wins that damage long-term trust. 4. They buy risk reduction, where ruin is possible. They invest in legal structure, insurance, clean contracts, professional advice when stakes are high. Because they know small mistakes are survivable, big mistakes are permanent. This is the asymmetry of risk. Avoid ruin. 5. They buy environments that upgrade their standards. We talked about access. But the deeper truth is this. Your environment is a spending decision. Where you live, who you spend time with, what information you consume. Those choices shape your beliefs, your habits, your expectations, your spending behavior, and your ambition. That is reflexivity applied to life. Wealthy people curate environments because they understand. Your environment trains your identity. And identity drives your money. Now here's the paradox. The truly rich often look boring because they are not spending for attention. They don't need to signal. Their spending is invisible, strategic, and designed for optionality. Meanwhile, rich-looking spending is optimized for visibility. Luxury brands, high-cost habits, constant upgrades. One builds freedom, the other builds a cage. So the real question isn't, what do rich people buy? The real question is, does your spending increase or decrease your optionality? That's the whole game. Here's the simplest framework you can use every week. The rich spending rule. Spend to increase optionality. Avoid spending that increases fragility. Now the practical checklist. 1. The 4 buckets of spending. Bucket A. Freedom, priority, emergency buffer, debt reduction, low fixed costs, time-saving systems, skills that increase income, health. Bucket B. Growth, strategic, investing consistently, business tools, education with clear ROI, networks, and access. Bucket C. Enjoyment, intentional experiences you genuinely value. Travel with limits, hobbies that restore energy. Enjoyment is allowed. It just needs boundaries. Bucket D. Status, careful. Purchases mainly for visibility, upgrades to impress, expensive habits that become permanent. Rule. Status bucket must be the smallest and the slowest. 2. The 7 audit questions. Quick weekly check. Does this increase freedom within 12 months? Does it reduce fragility? Does it increase future cash flow or capacity? Does it create recurring fixed costs? Would I buy it if nobody could see it? If income drops 30% for a year, does this hurt me? Does this align with the person I'm becoming? 3. The 1 big move rule. Instead of 20 tiny cuts, make 1 meaningful change. Housing, car debt, major recurring expense. 1 big move creates real optionality. Let me close with this. Most people copy the costume of wealth, the visible lifestyle, the brand signals, the upgrades. But the wealthy copy the machine. Time, stability, health, access, risk reduction, assets, and optionality. So if you want to spend like the rich, don't ask, what do they buy? Ask, what position are they buying? Because position creates options. Options create freedom. And freedom is the point. If you found this useful, here's your assignment. This week, do a 10-minute rich spending audit. Pick 1 expense and decide, is it buying freedom or buying a cage? Then redirect just 1 decision toward optionality. That's it. Small shifts compound.